So Rick Riordan just announced a completely brand new Percy Jackson series called Camp Half-Blood, and the first book is called The Wild Zone. And honestly, this might be one of the biggest changes the Percy Jackson universe has had in years. Because for the first time in a main Riordan series, Percy Jackson is not the main character. Instead, the story follows a new demigod named Katie Kim, who's a daughter of Ares and a brand new camper at Camp Half-Blood. According to the official description, Clarisse takes Katie and several other rookie campers into a forbidden section of camp called the Wild Zone and basically leaves them there overnight to survive. Which honestly sounds exactly like something Clarisse would do. Now, at first, this might just sound like a random side story, but the more details that come out, the more it feels like Rick Riordan is trying to completely expand the Percy Jackson universe beyond Percy himself. And that's actually a huge deal, because for almost 20 years, Percy has basically been the center of everything in the Riordanverse. Even in series where he wasn't technically the main character, like the Heroes of Olympus, he was still one of the biggest focuses. But this new series seems different. Apparently, every book in the Camp Half-Blood series is going to follow a completely different camper from a different cabin. Book 1 follows Katie Kim, a daughter of Ares. Book 2 follows Harper Rush, a son of Aphrodite. Book 3 focuses on Zuri Chapman, a daughter of Apollo. And Book 4 follows Benny Garcia, who's an unclaimed camper. And honestly, that's actually a really smart idea. Because one thing fans have wanted forever is more stories about the other cabins at Camp Half-Blood. Like, think about how massive Camp Half-Blood always felt in the original Percy Jackson books. There are dozens of cabins, tons of demigods, rivalries, friendships, cabin politics, training, quests, but Percy only really focused on his own perspective. There were probably entire adventures happening in the background that we never even heard about. And this series finally explores that side of the world. Another really interesting detail is the timeline. The books are apparently set between the Lightning Thief and the Sea of Monsters, which means while Percy was away, all this stuff was happening at Camp Half-Blood. And honestly, I love that concept because it makes the universe feel way more alive. Instead of everything revolving around Percy 24/7, the camp actually feels like a real place where hundreds of demigods have their own stories and problems even when Percy isn't there. Now, the biggest mystery, obviously, is the Wild Zone itself. We still don't fully know what it actually is, but from the official description, it sounds like a dangerous, forbidden area somewhere in the forest around Camp Half-Blood. Apparently, campers have disappeared there before and even experienced demigods avoid it. And when you really think about that, it's kind of terrifying, because Camp Half-Blood is supposed to be the safe place for demigods. That place is basically the heart of the entire franchise. The cabins, the campfire, capture the flag, sword training, Mr. D being annoyed all the time. That's the stuff people associate most with Percy Jackson. And I think Rick Riordan knows that. He actually mentioned that working on the Disney plus Percy Jackson adaptation helped inspire this series, because revisiting Camp Half-Blood reminded him how many untold stories were still there. Which makes sense. The Disney show is bringing in a whole new generation of fans, and this series feels like Riordan trying to expand the universe for both new readers and older fans at the same time. And honestly, I think the biggest test for this series is going to be one simple question. Can the Percy Jackson universe survive without Percy as the main focus? Because Percy is basically the face of the entire franchise. But at the same time, every big fantasy universe eventually has to grow beyond one character if it wants to keep going long-term. And maybe smaller-scale Camp Half-Blood stories are exactly what the Riordanverse needs right now instead of another giant world-ending prophecy. So overall, The Wild Zone feels less like a random spin-off and more like the start of a completely new era for Percy Jackson. New protagonists, new cabins, new mysteries, and maybe a darker side of Camp Half-Blood we've never seen before. But what do you guys think? Are you excited for the Wild Zone? Or do Percy Jackson stories only work when Percy himself is the main character?